coming live from Los Angeles. Beautiful day here in Los Angeles. And I have my co-host with me, Carlos Ponce from Mexico City, and our guest, Alex Bernard. Did I say that right? Great. Alex, this is your third time on Dojo Live.
Yeah.
Welcome back. We're looking forward to talking with you. Please, for the benefit of the audience, everybody's watching us live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Just give us an introduction of who you are for those who are new to the show and new to you as a guest.
Yeah, I'm running a consulting agency focused on software engineering practices, and I've been doing this for a number of years now. Started with the idea to build a full serve applications using machine learning and artificial intelligence. However, that kind of slowed down in about a couple of years ago. So I switched over to focusing on consulting with large organizations in how to bring the agile DevOps practices into their kind of rejuvenate and improve or raise the level of engineering quality and enable continuous stream of business value delivery. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
That's great. That's certainly something we're very familiar with, and we look forward to discovering more about that. Today's topic, Carlos, would you please introduce today's topic, and let's go right into the conversation. You're on mute, I think.
You're on mute.
It always happens to me, so please.
That's okay.
I'm known as a mute guy, so please.
You just keep
bear
it
with
interesting,
me.
making sure people are paying attention. That's part of the trick.
Absolutely. Exactly. It has to do. Actually, it has to do with our topic, okay? Because we're going to be speaking about embracing failure as an agent of change. Okay, so it's interesting that Alex mentioned that we're gonna be speaking about the journey from conservative or risk-averse, status quo-centric corporate culture to dynamic process-oriented culture. You know, the values early and frequent failure. So I'm kind of intrigued on how that works in the tech world. Alex, first question is: tell us and the audience, why did you choose this particular topic? Why did you think that this is relevant for today's conversation?
I think this is very relevant because we are seeing a lot of large organizations realizing that software is in their DNA. So it's not just applicable to high-tech industry or to those organizations that are building software and selling. But today, any business can hardly function without having fairly sophisticated applications and systems in support of their business operation. Software engineering is still kind of young and budding discipline, and traditionally we've seen a lot of projects that do not really deliver to the expectations and to the promise, and then delays, and there's a spillover budget, a lot of money being spent but not really reaching the goal. So it happened about 20 years ago, I think, where the industry had a reboot, and it came up with this thing called Agile Manifesto, which is a very significant event in the history of software development, software engineering. And we are seeing more and more organizations kind of siding with that, with more agile, more focused on value stream delivery. And instead of, the old conservative way, which is based on big bang approach. So you launch a project, you go away, you wait for 18 months, and there's a big bang, ta-da, with a bow tie, and then we realize, oh, well, that's not really meeting what I was expecting. So it is very, very, very late failure, and it costs a lot of money. And so Agile proposes we start failing very early, because early failures are not as traumatic, and there's no need to panic, and you haven't really spent much time or money And so when you fail early, you can say, okay, well, not a big deal. We can correct, we can inspect and adapt and correct the course. And so the series of these small and innocuous failures um, is, is has been demonstrated as a good way to go. And you are involving your customers and your stakeholders very early in the game, and you are soliciting feedback by failing. Because when you fail, everybody sits up and says, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't like where this is going," and then we're like, okay. So where would you like me to go? And that correction, that series of corrections, is much cheaper and tends to deliver more to the expectations and satisfy the paying customer. Which is, I think, a lot of large organizations. Currently, I'm consulting with a large government organization, realizing that maybe this is the way to go. Maybe we should start doing things from ground up, step by step, and making sure that we are delivering value rather than investing a lot of money up front, waiting, and then hoping that when they come back to us with a delivery, it will be to our expectations. So this is why I think this topic is very relevant today, as I'm seeing more and more large organizations either doing it or being very curious and kind of trying to learn more and to see why would that be desirable.
Absolutely. Well, that certainly raises a lot of questions. But Tulio, I'd like to have you
Yeah,
start off.
one of the questions I have, I'm assuming you have clients worldwide or just in the States? What's your client mix like?
So it's mostly right now. It's mostly local here in Canada, Vancouver.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just curious about the concept of failure, right? There's
yeah.
such a negative connotation. A lot of people relate to the word failure. It instantly conjures up, oh man, it's just something that you're ashamed of. But you're saying it can be used as a tool for change. Tell me a little bit more about that. How do organization change their relationship to the idea of failure as an opportunity to invoke change or to make improvement? What's been your experience in terms of organizations embracing the concept of, hey, it's okay to fail to get better? What's your thought process on that?
You are absolutely right. There is a huge resistance to even using the word failure. And I've been asked to maybe stop using it or maybe can we find another word. My approach is to try and put a positive spin on it because it really is very, has a negative energy around it. And, a lot of people feel like, oh my God, if I go and I say I failed, I'll get fired or demoted. So I'm trying to, 'cause, we like acronyms, and I'm trying to rename or give the word failure, break it into 4 words. Uh, First, attempt in learning. So actually,
Mm.
and so failure is more like a learning opportunity because oftentimes if we don't fail, we don't learn anything. We are just repeating ingrained habit, and there's no opportunity to learn. In our world today, we cannot. Nobody has a crystal ball. We cannot predict what's going to be efficient. So we are transforming into a learning organization, and we learn every step of the way. And so I'm trying to present it as an opportunity to learn. The failure is not traumatic. It's not causing any panic. It is a small, contained failure. And one good thing about the failure, it gives you the impetus to immediately fix it. Nobody fails and says, okay, I'm going home and I give up. That's not how it works. We all stay on the job. But if I am spending months and months working on something and I'm afraid to fail, eventually the big failure is going to become much more problematic. And then, it has some dire consequences. We're hoping to avoid that and to preempt. And we say, okay, let's start with a small failure. Let's see where this leads us. Have you learned anything? And also, we are soliciting feedback. Uh, nobody, everybody is busy. Nobody has the time to walk around and give feedback to everyone. So we need to solicit feedback, and the most efficient way to solicit feedback is to have a small little failure that jolts somebody and says, "Oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? Can you explain to me what's going on?" And I'm like, okay, I tried to do this, but I wasn't really sure. Do I have complete information? And was the communication clear or maybe ambiguous? So here's my first attempt, first cut, and please, you know, I'm open to hearing from you to learn what should I do next. Okay? And this is proving to be quite successful, right? The failure breeds success, but only providing that this failure is immediately fixed. If we fail and let it put it back on a backlog and let it fester, then no, this is going to be a catastrophe. So this
Alex,
yes,
Alex, I think what you're introducing is the idea that a lot of organizations are looking to increase the emotional intelligence within the organization, within people in the organization. Would you say you have to sort of be someone who's embracing the concept? I love the explanation, first attempt at learning, that part of this is the ability to expand in your emotional intelligence. If we look at science, right, science discovers cures through the process of failure, hundreds and thousands of permutations that turn out to be a lot of first attempts at learning, right? But that is built into the success equation on how science finds solutions. So how are companies making that shift in terms of in IT? There's engineers tend to be very risk averse to failure, right? It's about everything's got to be clean, and so it's a little harder to go into that environment saying it's okay to learn and make some changes through failure. What's it been like for you to try to get adoption to that principle, and where have you seen more resistance? And more importantly, for those listening, what tips can you have for those listening that are afraid of, adopting failure as a vehicle to learn or invoke changes? What are some of the tips you've learned that you'd like to share?
that's a great question. Thank you. A lot of engineers and people who work in the knowledge industry are not really big fans of micromanaging. And they are not very happy when people are monitoring, when management is monitoring them and constantly asking what's going on. So this approach that we are now doing, the agile DevOps, shifts the focus from do more, because that's the traditional, like management always saying do more, because we are paying for this and it's important to get done. And people feel that that's a form of micromanagement, right? And it's kind of creating a lot of friction. So switching from do more to here is what's next. So our focus, what we're trying to introduce is like this momentum, establish the momentum. We are constantly saying, here's what's next. Here's what's next. When we get into that cadence or that kind of loop where we are every day or even many times per day saying, and here's what's next. Here's what's next. This really builds a lot of trust between the technology and the business. Because let's not forget, the original idea about Agile Manifesto was to heal the divide. Because there was a perceived divide between the business and technology, and somehow they would not gel well. And so the idea is to build up this trust, and so that you can see that we as engineers are constantly showing you, and here's what's next, here's what's next. And this is with the series of failures, gaining feedback, and then fixing it immediately and demonstrating it. So it's important to always be ready to demonstrate, and we sometimes we demonstrate on a frequent basis, and this really appeases any anxieties. Where if you're paying a lot of money to the team of engineers, you are sitting there anxious like, am I burning my money? Is it really bringing me value, or are we just going in circles? So the more frequently we can say, here's what's next, and here's what we did, here's what's next, we find that the business side, the sponsors and stakeholders are more trusting, and we become partners. And it's like everybody's business, everyone has skin in the game, and this really creates a very healthy, I think, learning organization that knows that if we continue learning, we will be more prosperous, we will be more competitive on the market, and we will be more resilient to, you know, market shifts or regulatory shifts that always introduce some unwanted change. So in general, I think this approach for with having a lot of it's almost like a contact sport. Like everybody's involved. It's not like somebody sitting in the ivory tower doing something navel gazing, and then after 6 months, oh, here's what I came up with. Um, it was a little bit again like there is a divide between the business and technology, but we're actually all in this together, and we're all trying to be prosperous in our in the marketplace, in our daily jobs, and we are finding this can help a lot. We need to be fully aligned with the stakeholders and they are paying for it, right? And they need evidence that the money is working for to their expectations. So this discipline is more kind of creating a glue between technology and the business where we feel that we are putting it in direction.
Let me see if I heard you correctly. What I'm hearing is that for organizations, if they want to adopt less fear around the concept of failing to learn, first of all, you've got to stop this top-down approach to things, right? You got to give people the freedom to self-manage, to be able to take those risks and learn from those changes. So there's a little bit of a removal of that oversight, if you will, that makes people scared to take risks, to actually go through the process of learning through failure. And the other thing I've heard is this idea of instead of dwelling on what happened in terms of the failure, focus on what's next, right? Okay, we did that, didn't work out. What's next? Did I hear that right? Anything we like to? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, on how that's in practice working in organizations?
Yes, basically, it is shifting the focus from deadlines and roadmaps and big plan upfront to discovery and learning discipline, where we are daily adjusting and adapting. We're getting feedback and responding to that feedback, and we are focused on working software. So working software is we live and die by that. We're not spending too much time on building big diagrams and whatnot. We are more interested in spending time with paying customers or with customer representatives, product owners, and gaining feedback from them, showing them where we are at the moment, what can we do next, and asking them, is this where you want us to go, or you have a different idea? We want to keep the alignment real tight. We don't want to diverge and then later on learn, oh no, we went in the wrong direction, because this is now a very expensive discovery and it's quite demoralizing. So as long as we keep this track, everybody's in a good mood and good spirits, and we are learning, and there's a job satisfaction, as well as we know that our venture is prosperous, and we'll still have our job next month, and we'll stay gainfully employed. So I think that is very important from the cultural perspective. The learning organization that is empowering workers, because workers are actually in the trenches and they know 100% of the problems, right? And they should be, you need to earn that autonomy, but once you have it, you should be empowered to make some decisions in real time and adjust the course. Because if you realize that something is off and it takes a long time for it to trickle all the way to the decision makers, then by the time the decision has been made, maybe it's already too late. So timing is everything, and we are trying to be as close, ear to the ground, as close as possible to how things are moving and shifting, and be able to quickly respond to the changes, right? Because like I said, no one has a crystal ball, and we don't know what's going to happen 6 months down the road or 1 year down the road. Nobody can predict that. And so to have some solidified, cemented plans and sticking to it, sometimes it's like fool's gold. You just miss the boat, right? Because you need to be responsive, agile. I mean, the word itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hearing loud and clear we need to change the relationship to what we consider success to actually constantly learning and growing and expanding. and through that process get better and better at something. If anybody has any questions for Alex, please, you can post them right in the stream's comments or on Twitter at Dojo Live. We love to hear audience ask questions. We will make sure that Alex gets it while we're still broadcasting. Carlos, you have any some questions for Alex as well?
Well, I was kind of hoping to hear from you, Alex, in this technology space, and specifically in the software development space. You're talking about empowering teams, right? Through frequent failure and all that. But what I would like to know is how can I let me word my thoughts, please. What I would like to know is how do you think that certain differences inside the same team can be overcome? I don't know, how can they be negotiated, so to speak, in regards to how they view failure? For example, you might have a team of, let's say, 10 people working on a project, and then some of those people can view failure as something good, and then the rest can be something negative that they don't really want to look at, or they don't even want to consider. So there's a mixed feelings about what failure means. What do you think is, in your experience, is the best way to homogenize the perception about what failure is in order to work seamlessly as a team?
Well, in this context, we are trying to, in no unclear terms, define the failure as something that needs to be immediate. And it's just an impetus for you to get more information regarding how should things really work.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes step by step. So failure is not something where you hit the wall and like, okay, I'm stuck here and sorry, I'm helpless. I don't know what to do next. We are engineering the failure. We are not just doing sort of like, okay, we're at the mercy of some factors, and when they hit us, we fail, and now we don't know how to troubleshoot. We don't know how to fix. The failure is intentional and it's engineered, and it's actually provoking us or putting us in a situation where I say, look, I will not even go for a coffee break before I fix that. So this immediacy is what's important. As you know, when your coworker is working on engineering this failure, the failure happens, so your coworker is going to fix it right there. He's not going to go home and maybe see if he can fix it tomorrow. So these are really micro failures, if we are to be more specific. These are not like big, global failures. So we are doing step by step, create a failure. This failure provokes or entices some feedback, whether it's at code level or maybe at the design level, architecture level, feature and whatnot, all these things. And then when we create this friction, which is engineered, which is intentional, which is not by accident, we know that we are ready now listening and receiving further instructions, what needs to happen next, and we do it. So immediately the failure, not immediately, but like maybe takes a few minutes, up to a couple of hours, shouldn't be longer because it's micro failure. We are now back to a steady state. Everything is working. We should not ever be in a position where things are busted and we go on vacation or hope that somebody one day will fix that. This is really bad, right? But these are really small contained ones where we are going step by step and we are immediately fixing them, which creates a better platform for introducing new failures which will be more meaningful. So they are all carefully engineered, and that's what we are teaching: how to engineer a failure that will give you the opportunity to improve your system or your solution.
Go ahead, Tulio, please.
Go ahead. I was just gonna build off your question. I think it's relevant in the sense that there's certain cultures that are not as open to the idea of learning through failure than, for example, the Western world. And unfortunately, what happens, at least this is just from personal experience, and I know a lot of other people have had the same experience. What happens is sometimes you might get a teammate or an engineer say, yes, I'll do that. I'll take care of that. Yes, no problem. And not push back because, and sometimes not communicate that the thing is failing because of fear of not looking good or being perceived as a failure. So I think the question was very relevant in terms of how do you homogenize this approach so that it could be inclusive and everyone can embrace it, even in those cultures where typically there's pressure to always perform and always do your best and always be perfect. What are, as we're coming up on time, what are some tips that you'd like to share with the audience who are thinking about adopting an agile methodology? What are some things that they can put in place now to prepare to be less worried about, messing up and more concerned about growing and learning together? And I guess it requires a little bit of vulnerability, right? You have to have an environment where people can be vulnerable to say, I messed up and here's what I learned from it. What would you recommend in those environments? How can they adopt?
First of all, I would say that and this is something we cannot control, but in my case, I'm very fortunate to work with organizations. Currently, I'm working in an organization where the director, the sponsor, is incredibly sophisticated individual who is in full support and really dedicated. So right there, the stage is set for a learning organization. And if you're fortunate to work in that organization, everything kind of happens quickly. I'm working on right now is a dojo, right? Same as what you're about to do. But the dojo we are working on is we get the team in a room, and I'm teaching the fail first methodology. But then we're also doing something called mob programming, which is there's only one computer in the room, there's only one screen, and we divide the mob into a driver. This is the person at the keyboard, the navigator, which is standing next to that person and navigates where the things are moving, and then we have the mob, which is like a bunch of other engineers or whoever is involved, and then we tackle the problem. So we are learning as a team what does it mean to fail and how do we recover. And the best part of the mob programming is it's like music of chairs. There's a 4 minute rotation. So after 4 minutes, you if you're a driver, you stand up, the navigator becomes the driver, somebody else becomes the navigator, and we go round and round. This creates a lot of energy in the room, and you can see that slowly things are kind of gelling, and everybody has one thing on their mind, which is how to solve this problem. And interesting thing happens because it's now a mind share, a collective intelligence takes over, and we usually end the session on a high note with amazingly brilliant solutions, which I personally I don't think I would be able to do it on my own, and a lot of people feel that way. Interesting thing is that the blame disappears. It's a blameless situation. But also, on the other hand, there is no authorship. Nobody can go and say, "Yeah, it's because of me that we solved it." It really becomes it's a really very interesting dynamic, and it helps build a culture, cement the culture, and now we feel safe because we work together. When we work together, there's no fear. When I work in isolation, I go to my corner and I work, and it's a long time I just work on my own. I start becoming a little bit of you know, anxiety, a little bit of fear. Is what I'm doing really good? Is somebody going to call me and say, "What are you doing?" But when we work together, there's absolutely no fear because we are all in this together, right? And I
That's
find that
amazing. That's
it is.
amazing advice. Definitely
Yeah.
teamwork, and what a great example of how to actually sort of almost force that teamwork and get everybody to stop, doing the blame game or who takes the credit. I love that concept that you just presented. What a
In my
great piece of
experience,
advice.
in my experience, it was amazing that because you first time you introduce this, you think, "Oh, people are going to be kind of resilient." It took just few minutes for everybody to completely relax, decompress, and then at the end of the session, people even think, "Oh, I can't wait for the next one." It's like a party, right? We all become buddies. It's camaraderie. We get to know each other, and there's a lot of humor, a lot of jokes flying around while we are solving the problem. I'm really amazed at the power of that. But you see, it only works if you introduce failure first, because this failure is creating this energy in the room. and it's very small enough that we know we can fix it. But everybody's now really kind of glued to the screens. Okay, everybody's thinking, throwing out ideas, and also very importantly, to establish what they call bias to action. So we're not going to be deliberating about someone's idea. We just try. Anybody has an idea, try it on the spot. See if it works or not, right? Because the system is going to push back and tell you. Somebody says, I know. I think if we do this, it's going to work. Okay, try it. Run the test. Didn't work. Oh, wow. I'm shocked. Okay, let me think some more, right? And you see, there's no fear anymore, right? Failure becomes like our friend. It's my best friend because it's really, helping me produce better, higher quality solutions. And when I finish that, I go home and I feel like completely confident in my capabilities because I work in a group, and we call it the mall. Right? But we're with them, and we become really. The more we do this, we get to know each other better, and we are completely relaxed. And I have your full trust, and you have my full trust. I find that is a very strong culture building exercise. And like I said, we
Yeah,
end up
abs-
as a strong, healthy organization that is focused on learning and getting better.
sounds like a great piece of advice, Alex. It's been a pleasure having you. We're up on time. It always happens that way when we start really getting into it. But it's been a pleasure to have you. These are great tips. For those who have watched, don't forget to tune in on Monday when we do the recap of this show. We will highlight 3, 4, 5 points that came out of it. I think there were some great nuggets to share again on Monday. And also, what's coming up as our next guest next Wednesday, Carlos?
Next Wednesday is all going to be about travel technology, and we're going to be speaking with Jordan Hollander, the CEO of Hotel Tech Report, and which is a technology-driven media platform that helps entrepreneurial hoteliers find the best technology tools to solve problems and grow their business. So that's what we're going to be having next week, right here on Dojo Live. Remember, 1 p.m. Pacific on Wednesday.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. Till next time.
See you next time, and thank you, Alex, once again.
Thank you very much for
Goodbye.
inviting me. Bye. Bye.